Hey, check this out. Welcome back guys to the second part of the piano tutorial. In the first part, we designed this piano right here using CSS and React and TypeScript. In this part, we'll be adding the functionality to this piano using the browser's Web Audio API. So let's get started. What I like to do before I start any project is make myself a small generalized checklist. So number one is we need to find out how do we play audio using the Audio Web API. Number two is how do we get the user input such as clicks and keyboard events to actually make something happen. Third of all is how do we update the screen and show that each key is pressed. So now let's figure out number one. Scrolling through MDN docs, I found out that this is the way to actually play audio. And the way it goes is by creating a new audio object, setting the attribute as the source to be the file name of the MP3 that you want to play, and then calling this function called audio.play. And for now, I wrapped it around the use effect to start whenever we load in our application. So when I refresh right now, you're going to hear the sound playing right there. So step one is done. Okay, now for part two, I've come up with this solution. I want to store all the keys that are being pressed right now by the keyboard. To do that, I'm going to use an array of all the pressed keys using a string array and store that in a use state. So this is how I actually made it, and I made sure to give it a type of string array because each key press would be basically a string. Now what we're going to do is use the document.addEventListener. We're going to listen to the key down and key up events. So let's make functions that will actually be called when these events are happening. So these are what our functions will look like for now. And then we want to add the document.addEventListener for the key down and give it the handle key down function, as well as document.addEventListener for the key up and give it the handle key up function. So now that we have our event listeners, we need to make sure that when our component is unmounted, we actually remove these event listeners for cleanup. So what we can do is use the return and give it a function. This is actually something that useEffect gives us when we want to clean up something. So to do that, we do document.removeEventListener and give it our key down as well as the handler for it, and do the same for the key up. Now let's actually populate our functions. So our keyboard event listener actually takes in an event which is of type keyboard event. Alright, so we'll be using this event to take in the data that's given, which will be the key that is pressed. So let's find out what is actually happening in this keyboard event. I'm going to do console.log e.key. And now if we open the console log using F12 and go to the console, we can see that, okay, F12 is over there, and whatever we press is going to show up over here. Nice. So let's continue and populate our key pressed string array. So before we actually handle this event, we need to check for some things. First, we want to check if the key is not held down repeated. And then we don't want to add keys that we have already added in our pressed keys array. So to do that, we can do if not pressed keys dot includes, and then we can have the e.key. This will check if our array does not have this key already. So if all these conditions are met, we can do set pressed keys and set it to this value. Basically, we will take the previous keys, so the previous value, and give it a value of whatever it was before plus e.key. So this will actually kind of append what key we pressed to the array. Let's go ahead and check this out. Console.log pressed keys. Now, as you can see, we're not actually updating anything right now. This is because our use effect is not being updated dependent on the actual variable that we did, the state that we have. So what we need to do is add it in the dependency array here. So we can do pressed keys. And now once we go to our console log, let me refresh, we can actually see the keys being outputted right here. But only the keys that are not being pressed. So if I just press A, nothing will happen. If I press Q, it's not there, so it will add it. Okay, now let's handle the key up function. So it will also take a keyboard event. And in this one, all we need to do is basically remove the key from the list. So to do that, we need to set pressed keys and take in our previous keys and run it through a filter function. Filter, and whatever this function does is takes in the element and checks if the element that we're currently on is not equal to e.key. So this will basically remove the key that's associated with the key up event from our list. So this is what we have right now. Whenever I hold the button, it will keep holding. And if I add more buttons that I'm holding, and if I release all of them, they're all gonna go. Amazing. And now that we have a list of all the keys that are being pressed, we can actually pass that down to our key component. This will be useful for us to identify which key is being pressed and update it accordingly. So let's add this array as a key prop. I'll be calling it as pressed keys, and this will equal to pressed keys. And the same thing for our other sets of keys. So now what we need to do is go to our key component and make sure to give ourselves the key prop and pass it down here as well so that we can actually use it. Pressed keys. We're now one step ahead to getting our finalized piano, but there's still one thing missing. So we want to make sure that our key prop or key component actually remembers if it's pressed or not. So to do that, we will be using a state variable. Const is pressed, and we have a setter function which is set is pressed, and this will equal to a use state, and initially it will be false, and we can give it a type here because we're using TypeScript as a boolean. Let's not forget to import our function. Okay, and ideally what I want to do is over here in the class name do the same thing as we did for black. So I'm gonna copy this and paste it here. Let's see if is pressed. If it's true, it will have the value of pressed. If not, it will just be empty. So now we can actually change the class in our CSS. Let's go over to our key.css. Okay, now, so if our class name consists of key and it consists of pressed, we will style it like this. For now, I will just give it a background color of red. So that's hashtag ff0000. Cool. So right now we have no way of updating it actually to become pressed. So to do that, we need some mapping functions and some helper functions. Let's add a use effect here to change the state according to the pressed keys variable that we received from the props input. Use effect, and we're gonna have a function here, as well as a dependency array which takes in the pressed keys. And in this function, we will be calling set is pressed. And now we want to check if the pressed keys includes the current key that we have. So how do we actually identify which key we're on? we will need a helper function for that. So for now, I'll just write the templates for it. Get keys, this is the helper function that we'll need. Get key from note, and it will take in the props if it's black, and the notes, which is the index. Okay, so right now let's actually write this function. Okay, so I went ahead and created a folder called helpers and made this file called getKeyFromNote. What we want to do is export const and give the name as getKeyFromNote. So this will be a function that takes in two parameters. First will be a black, which is a boolean. The second will be a note, which will be a number. So this will actually map the notes. If you remember the previous video, the white notes had a range from 0 to 6, and the black notes had the range from 0 to 5, but the second one was skipped. So to actually map them together, we can have this code right here. Okay, so what it's doing is, if our black is false, so we are in the white notes, 0 would count to A, S would count to 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are all the white notes. But if we are a black note, then W would count as C sharp, and E would count as D sharp, but there is no E sharp, so we're leaving this as empty, and so on. So F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp. And then we will be returning the key mapping note. We can use this to check if our key pressed is the key that we want. So going back to our key.tsx, we can just import our exported function here. And let's see. So if I press a button, there we go. I pressed the A button and the C notes played. So A, S, D, F, G, H, J, cool. W, E, T, Y, U. So all the keys are being updated accordingly. Amazing. All we need to do now is link up our key pressed to actually playing the audio. So what I went ahead and got done is install a bunch of Note MP3s. They're named as this, so C4, and C-4 means C sharp 4. So we need to have some kind of mapping as well, in which we need to find out which key is pressed and map it to the actual audio file. So I went ahead and did the mappings for you. I can link this down in the description below. So what this does is make an object where the key is a string value, like the A's and the W and the S, and it will take a string value as the value of the key. So C4, C sharp 4, D4, D-4. So over here, we can take in the string, which is basically the key that we want, and pass it into here, this audio key map. And now we can use our audio web API to play the notes. So we can do const audio equals new audio, and then we can do audio dot set attribute, and the source would be source, and let's have the path to our notes. So this will be /source /assets/notes, and then we'll have the file name. So let's actually make this into a formatted string. So we can just do this to import our notes. And let's not forget to add the .mp3. Okay, cool. All we need to do now is do audio.play. Now, we need to call this function in our app.tsx. So over here, once we have a key down event, we will do play notes from keyboard and give it the key that we have. So e.key. Let's check it out. Okay, this made a sound. Oh, there's one missing. There's two missing. So U and J. So G to Y and then H does not work. This is because in our file name over here, we have A is A5. Due to the naming of these files, we just have to adjust A to become 5, which is an octave higher, 5 and 5. Okay, let's check this out. Okay, now these work. Amazing! And the cool part about this is you can start playing chords. So these are just 3 notes stacked together. There you go. So there you guys have it. This is our fully completed piano using React, TypeScript and CSS. If you really enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and leave a comment down below to give me your opinion and what you'd like to see next. Thank you guys for watching and enjoy your day.